Swam Taram Ninye Yoganam Eka Sapta Tim Vasudeva Prasangena Paribhuta Gati Traya. He passed his time, which lasted 71 cycles of the 4 ages, or 71 times 4,320,000 years, always thinking of Vasudeva and always engaged in matters regarding Vasudeva. Thus he transcended the 3 destinations. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The 3 destinations are meant for persons who are under the control of the 3 modes of material nature. These destinations are sometimes described as the awkward,
Awakened.
what? I'm sorry, as the awakened, dreaming, and unconscious stages. In Bhagavad Gita, the 3 destinations are described as the destinations of persons in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. It is stated in the Gita that those who are in the mode of goodness are promoted to better living conditions in higher planets, and those who are in the mode of passion remain within this material world on the earth or on heavenly planets. But those who are in the mode of ignorance are degraded to an animal life on planets where life is lower than human. But one who is Krishna conscious is above these 3 modes of material nature. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who engages in devotional service to the Lord automatically becomes transcendental to the 3 destinations of material nature and is situated in the Brahmabhuta, or the self-realized stage. Although Swayambhuva Manu, the ruler of this material world, appeared to be absorbed in material happiness, he was neither in the mode of goodness nor in the modes of passion or ignorance, but in the transcendental stage. Therefore, one who fully engages in devotional service is always liberated. Bilvamangala Thakura, a great devotee of the Lord, stated, "If I have unflinching devotion to the lotus feet of Krishna, then Mother Liberation is always engaged in my service. The complete perfection of material enjoyment, religion, and economic development is at my command. People are after Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Generally, they perform religious activities to achieve some material gain, and they engage in material activity for sense gratification. After being frustrated in material sense gratification, one wants to be liberated and become one with the absolute truth. These 4 principles form the transcendental path for the less intelligent. Those who are actually intelligent engage in Krishna consciousness, not caring for these 4 principles of the transcendental method. They at once elevate themselves to the transcendental platform, which is above liberation. Liberation is not a very great achievement for a devotee, to say nothing of the results of ritualistic performances in religion, economic development, or the materialistic life of sense gratification. Devotees do not care for these. They are situated always on the transcendental platform of the Brahmabhuta stage of self-realization. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this verse, text 36, Canto 3, chapter 22, says, he passed his time, which lasted 71 cycles of the 4 ages, or 71 times 4,320,000 years, always thinking of Vasudeva, and always engaged in matters regarding Vasudeva. Thus, he transcended the three destinations. So I think he's talking about Manu.
Mm-hmm. Swayambhu.
Yes, Swayambhuva Manu.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, in the material world, there's such thing as three modes of material nature: Satya Guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna. And depending on our activities and desires, we are influenced by these three modes. And usually, like for example, when you go to sleep, you'll be in a mode of ignorance. When you wake up, you'll be in a mode of passion. And when you shower and chant Hare Krishna, you're in a mode of goodness. So these different modes are fluctuating, and is it possible for us to be always in the mode of goodness? It is, maybe, but normally, when you sleep, you're definitely in a mode of ignorance. When you wake up, you get in a mode of passion, and when you're hearing Bhagavad Gita and so forth, you're in a mode of goodness. So in this purport, it says the three destinations are meant for persons who are under the control of the three modes of material nature. Now, is there any way that we can become free or transcendental to the modes of material nature? Yes, there is. Let's read on here. Uh, these destinations are sometimes described as the awakened, dreaming, and unconscious stages. In Bhagavad Gita, the three destinations are described as the destinations of persons in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. It is stated in the Gita that those who are in the modes of goodness are promoted to better living conditions in higher planets, and those who are in the mode of passion remain within this material world on the earth or on heavenly planets. But those who are in the mode of ignorance are degraded to an animal life on planets where life is lower than human. But one who is Krishna conscious is above these three modes of material nature. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who engages in devotional service to the Lord automatically becomes transcendental to the three destinations of material nature and is situated in the Brahmabhuta or self-realized stage. Although Swayambhuva Manu, the ruler of this material world, appeared to be absorbed in material happiness, he was neither in the mode of goodness nor in the mode of passion or ignorance, but in the transcendental stage. Therefore, one who fully engages in devotional service is always liberated. Bilbavangala Thakura, a great devotee of the Lord, stated, if I have unflinching devotion to the lotus feet of Krishna, then Mother Liberation is always engaged in my service. The complete perfection of material enjoyment, religion, and economic development is at my command. People are after Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Generally, they perform religious activities to achieve some material gain, and they engage in material activity for sense gratification. After being frustrated in material sense gratification, one wants to be liberated and become one with the absolute truth. These four principles form the transcendental path for the less intelligent. Those who are actually intelligent engage in Krishna consciousness not caring for these four principles of the transcendental method. They at once elevate themselves to the transcendental platform, which is above liberation. Liberation is not a very great achievement for a devotee, to say nothing of the results of ritualistic performances in religion, economic development, or the materialistic life of sense gratification. Devotees do not care for these. They are situated always on the transcendental platform of the Brahmabhuta stage of self-realization. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is very good information. This is what Prabhupada is teaching us. What is that? And not to go through the different stages of self-realization, but to come right away to through devotional service to being Krishna conscious, always conscious of Krishna. That is the ultimate goal. So one can achieve that goal without going through the Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha stages. And how is that? Well, first of all, one has to surrender to a bona fide spiritual master. Then, after serving spiritual master, one can be initiated. When one is initiated, one makes a vow of, chastity, and one makes a vow of always taking the advice and the orders of the spiritual master and engaging 24 hours a day in the service of Krishna. At that point, one is transcendental to the Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. These different religious activities to achieve some material gain and thereby engage in material activity for sense gratification. So why go in that path? Because we'll become frustrated in material sense gratification. Then we want to be liberated and become one with the absolute truth. That means that we become a Mayavadi. So these four principles form the transcendental path for the less intelligent. Those who are actually intelligent engage in Krishna consciousness, not caring for these four principles of the transcendental method. They at once elevate themselves to the transcendental platform, which is above liberation. Liberation is not a very great achievement for a devotee, to say nothing of the results of ritualistic performances in religion, economic development, or the materialistic life of sense gratification. Devotees do not care for these. They are situated always on the transcendental platform of the Brahmabhuta stage of self-realization. Okay, so let's say someone comes to Krishna consciousness. What happens? Well, they begin to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If they chant regularly every day, if they regulate their behavior, in other words, going to bed early, waking up early, chanting your rounds, and coming Mangalarti, etc., then they have surpassed all the whole process of Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And they're even above the idea of moksha, liberation. Why? Because they're engaged in their eternal activity of devotional service. whether you're on this planet or another planet, whether you are this body or that body, as long as they're engaged in devotional service and not interested anymore in economic development and uh, sense gratification or mundane religious activities and rituals and things like that, uh, they're on a transcendental level, and it's called the Brahmabhuta stage of self-realization. Therefore, it says liberation is not a very great achievement for a devotee, to say nothing of the results of ritualistic performance, religion, economic development, or the materialistic life of sense gratification. Devotees do not care for these. They are situated always on the transcendental platform of the Brahma Bhuta stage of self-realization. Hare Krishna. So, chanting Hare Krishna and following the regulative principles and always hearing lectures given by bona fide devotees and engaging in Sankirtan, that means that we have surpassed all the other stages of so-called elevation through transcendental life. And uh, we are even more elevated. Uh, and here it says, they at once elevate themselves to the transcendental platform, which is above liberation. Liberation is not very great achievement for a devotee, to say nothing of the results of ritualistic performances in religion, economic development, or the materialistic life of sense gratification. Devotees do not care for these. They are situated always on the transcendental platform of the Brahmabhuta stage of self-realization. What is this Brahmabhuta stage of self-realization? It's the understanding that uh, we have all originally been with Krishna, and for some reason or other, we may have fallen down into this material world. But by the simple process of chanting Hare Krishna uh, regularly and taking prasadam regularly, we can attain our real position in the spiritual world again. In the spiritual world, we can experience it here in the material world by practicing regulated activity of Krishna consciousness. And when we go back to Godhead, of course, we continue in the same consciousness of transcendental bliss. So, whether we're in the material world or whether we're in the spiritual world, if we become regulated in Krishna conscious activities, we are a liberated person. And it doesn't matter being in the material world or the spiritual world. This is difficult for people to understand. That's why here it says that uh, devotees do not care for these. What are these? Uh, religion, economic development, materialistic life of sense gratification. Uh, so religion, economic development, or the materialistic life of performances and I'm sorry, materialistic life of sense gratification. Devotees do not care for these. They are situated always on the transcendental platform of Brahmabhuta stage or self-realization. Now, what is self-realization? We realize that we are the eternal servant of Krishna or Radha and Krishna. And we give up serving all other types of dead-end activities and engage in the transcendental activities of devotional service, with love and devotion for Radha and Krishna, and following the instructions of bona fide spiritual masters, and engaging in all the different wonderful activities, transcendental activities of Krishna consciousness. That's why it says here, those who are actually intelligent engage in Krishna consciousness, not caring for these four principles of the transcendental method. And he says, performing what are those four principles? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Generally, people perform religious activities to achieve some material gain, and they engage in material activity for sense gratification. After being frustrated in material sense gratification, one wants to be liberated and become one with the absolute truth. These four principles, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, form the transcendental path for the less intelligent. Those who are actually intelligent engage in Krishna consciousness, not caring for these four principles of the transcendental method. They at once elevate themselves to the transcendental platform, which is above liberation. Liberation is not a very great achievement for a devotee, to say nothing of the results of ritualistic performances in religion, economic development, or the materialistic life of sense gratification. Devotees do not care for these. They are situated always on the transcendental platform of the Brahmabhuta stage of self-realization. Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. There's a verse. Yeah. That's when one no longer is hankering or lamenting. No more hankering, no more lamenting, because one is on the one is always happy chanting Hare Krishna and engaging in acts of devotional service. So no more Kankshati, Samaksarve Sabute Sumad Bhaktim Labate Hara. One is in genuine transcendental situation, even in the material world, even in the material body, because all one's preoccupation is acting in Krishna consciousness without any material attachments. Only goal is to please Krishna through the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master. And here it says, after being frustrated in material sense gratification, one wants to be liberated and become one with the absolute truth. Well, one example of that was Osho. You know who Osho is? Yeah, what was his name before?
Rajneesh.
Yeah, Rajneesh. Rajneesh, after he became, let's say, he had a lot of, you know, so-called devotees, and a lot of them were women. After he got, let's say, cheated by the women, instead of him being, uh, spiritual master, he assumed the name of Osho. Now, what does Osho mean? Well, he became a impersonalist and pretended to be not interested in having any, uh, you know, identification as a big guru. Now he identified himself as some kind of a Mayavadi, and who was no longer interested in any material benefits, because before he had 99 Rolls Royces.
Yeah.
99 Rolls Royces, right? And he was engaged in all kinds of sense gratification. He was really enjoying life. and then he was what you would call cheated by his own female devotees, and he was pursued by the IRS, and he lost everything. So then he became a Mayavadi. Well, he was already a nonsense, but now he said, "Well, I'm not interested in any material things anymore." After owning 99 Rolls Royces.
93.
93, okay, 93. Sorry.
Little discount.
Yeah. See, this is what happens to the nonsense people. They have a period where they seem to be somewhat, spiritual. Then they get puffed up, and then they begin to do crazy things. Thinking that they're like God, and getting unnecessary worship as God. And then they get caught having illicit sex, and uh, you know, like for example, sometimes they cheat the IRS, and they don't play by the rules of society. They think they're above that, and they engage in illicit sex and so forth. Then they have this, reality check when they're being pursued by the IRS and so forth. Uh, and then they pretend to become, completely uh, giving up all sense gratification or all uh, sort of opulences and things like that, and or they run away, like our uh, what's his name, who's Nityananda. Yeah, they purchase an island somewhere in South America, and call it Kailash. uh, it's actually goulash, not Kailash. It's goulash. You know what goulash is? Yeah. It's a type of food where you mix everything together. You know, why don't you look that up? Goulash. He's calling his place now, which is like an island off the coast of South America. And he calls it Kailash. It actually is goulash. Goulash is a type of vegetable preparation where you mix everything together. Is that what it says?
Because in North America, people sometimes use the word goulash to describe a mixture of beef, macaroni, and tomato sauce, but authentic goulash is thick and spicy and does not include macaroni.
uh, in other words, goulash, it's a mixture of things. So these so-called, pure incarnations of God, uh, they're all goulash, mix everything together, and they think they make something new, but they just make a goulash, something that's all nonsense and speculated.
There is another, like there are many meanings. Another is a mixture of different elements
Yeah,
or a jumble.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what all these fake yogis are. They just mix everything.
It's a Hungarian dish.
Yeah, it is a Hungarian dish. Okay, so people are after dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Generally, they perform religious activities to achieve some material gain, and they engage in material activity for sense gratification. After being frustrated in material sense gratification, one wants to be liberated and become one with the absolute truth. These four principles form the transcendental path for the less intelligent. Now, why would it say that this four principles of form the transcendental path for the less intelligent. Well, the answer is uh, for those who are actually intelligent, engaged in Krishna consciousness, not caring for these four principles of the transcendental method. They at once elevate themselves to the transcendental platform, which is above liberation. Liberation is not a very great achievement for a devotee, to say nothing of the results of ritualistic performances in religion, economic development, or the materialistic life or sense gratification. Devotees do not care for these. They are situated always on the transcendental platform of the Brahmabhuta stage of self-realization. Well, self-realization means you realize you're the eternal servant of Krishna. That's who you really are. But that's not enough. Then you have to be actively engaged in the service of Krishna. Then you come to the transcendental stage of Krishna consciousness. Simply knowing, simply having knowledge is not enough. You have to act on that knowledge. And in other words, the action has to be pure devotional service without any material motive. Then one engages in pure transcendental life. The only purpose is to please Guru and Krishna. Then we are safely engaged in transcendental activities without selfish desires. And no more uh, lamentation and hankering. That's the symptom. No more than lamentation and hankering. Oh, I want this. Oh, I had this and I lost this. None of that anymore, because one is situated in their eternal position as a uh, devotee of Krishna without this hankering, kankshati, and so forth. And no more hankerings. That means desires, material desire. Okay. Uh, are there any questions? The main statement here is that uh, the performances of religion, economic development, and ritualistic performances, and so forth, uh, devotees do not care for these. So, like, let's say there's a ceremony, and the pundits are saying a lot of different mantras. But usually, devotees, if they go to such ceremonies, they just, while all those mantras are being said, the devotees chanting Hare Krishna, not really interested in all those mantras. They don't understand what they are anyway. They're all in Sanskrit. But the devotees just chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. That's why it's called Maha Mantra. It's the great mantra, or the greatest mantra for liberation from the cycle of birth and death. So if you only know this one mantra, you don't have to chant all the other mantras. Just chant Hare Krishna. You know, that's how powerful the Hare Krishna mantra is. But uh, the so-called let's say pundits, they have so many mantras. And in fact, one time I was talking to this one pundit. At one point, he pulled out this thick book that he had, showed it to me. He says, "I have a mantra for anything you want." And it was a thick book like that. So that's that's what they do. They This is like business. It's just like maybe somebody has encyclopedia. So they have an encyclopedia of pujas to perform. Anything you want. So that's not really pure devotional service. It's like contaminated service because it's all about wants. I want this, I want that. When it's I want Krishna, then it's different. But if I want this and I want that, it's not the same thing. Okay, so the real knowledge is one who fully engages in devotional service is always liberated. Bimavangal Thakur, a great devotee of the Lord, stated, if I have unflinching devotion to the lotus feet of Krishna, then mother liberation is always engaged in my service. The complete perfection of material enjoyment, religion, and economic development is at my command. People are after Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Generally, they perform religious activities to achieve some material gain. And they engage in material activity for sense gratification. After being frustrated in material sense gratification, one wants to be liberated and become one with the absolute truth. This is what happened to Osho before he was, what was his name? Rajneesh. Yeah. Then he got cheated by his female devotees. They took all the money and ran away. And then he became Osho. He became so-called completely, let's say, renounced, like a monk. But that was also fake. So we should not be influenced by such people. When their own disciples turn against them, steal all the money of the guru, that's when the guru gets really, shocked, and then he's not really a bona fide guru because he was acting like God. Many of these people, their disciples, they think he's God. Now, if the guru doesn't stop them from thinking like that, that means he's nonsense. He might say, well, I didn't say I was God. But if his disciples say he's God and he doesn't stop them from saying that, then that's nonsense. So there was a time where some devotees were trying to say that Prabhupada is God. Now, not a lot of devotees, but there was some. And Prabhupada stopped it right away. Why? Because if he's God, and after he disappears, then the others will say they are God. So it's a slippery slope of nonsense. So Prabhupada stopped it right away because he was a bona fide guru. He was not a bona fide Mayavadi nonsense. Okay. So
I think Maharaj, her name is Sheila Ambala Patel, Osho's personal secretary who
stole his money?
Mm.
Yeah.
She's still alive.
Yeah.
Age 90, age 74.
Yeah. He was surrounded by women. And then the women basically cheated him. You looked that up, huh? Good. Good that you looked that up. Yeah, so there are cheaters and cheated. So the so-called Osha was a cheater, but he was cheated by his own disciples. They ran away with all the money and material assets that he had evolved. And so he started over again by calling himself Osho, which is some name of some nonsense Mayavad group of people. All right, so this statement by Bilmavangal Thakur, a great devotee of the Lord, is very important. It says, if I have unflinching devotion to the lotus feet of Krishna, then mother liberation is always engaged in my service. The complete perfection of material enjoyment, religion, and economic development is at my command. Well, a genuine devotee is not really interested in those things. That's why he's saying it's at my command. I'm not under the control of economic development and you know uh, and material enjoyment and so forth. Uh, Therefore, one who fully engaged in devotional service is always liberated. Bilbavangala Thakur, a great devotee of the Lord, stated, if I have unflinching devotion to the lotus feet of Krishna, then mother liberation is always engaged in my service. The complete perfection of material enjoyment, religion, and economic development is in my command. So, if we learn to engage always in Krishna consciousness, then we don't have to pray for material benefits. Our prayers are only to glorify the Lord. The prayers for material benefit are not actually prayers. It's a type of a material deal making with Krishna. And you don't make deals with Krishna. But that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make a deal with God. I'll do this if you do this for me. You scratch my back, I scratch your back. That's not the way to relate to Krishna. He doesn't need your scratching. But if we surrender to the Lord and of course to the spiritual master and engage in devotional service, then all these things that seem to be so desirable for materialistic people are at the doorstep of a devotee. That's why it says here, if I have unflinching devotion to the lotus feet of Krishna, then mother liberation is always engaged in my service. The complete perfection of material enjoyment, religion, and economic development is at my command. Okay, so why should we be slaves of material, goals, when all material goals can be at our, let's say, beckoning? Just like Prabhupada, he comes to the United States with $7, and in 11 years, he develops a gigantic movement that's still going on and still expanding, and he came with $7, and after a short period of time, he had millions of dollars, right? But he wasn't attached to all that, and then he left the whole movement to his devotees to continue. So Prabhupada was not attached. He was only dedicated to Krishna. And one day I asked myself, is there a difference between Prabhupada and all these other gurus? And I thought about it for a couple of days. And finally I realized, yes, there is. All these other gurus, they name their movement after themselves. Like you have what's his name? Amritananda. or you have Osho, or you have this one or that one. They always name their movement after themselves. But Prabhupada didn't do that. He named the movement International Society for Krishna Consciousness or Krishna Consciousness. It's not Prabhupada Consciousness or International Society for Prabhupada. He was always putting Krishna in the most as the real goal, not himself. So that's what I realized, that was the difference between Prabhupada and all the other so-called gurus. He was not interested in naming the movement like the International Society for A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. No, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. But other gurus, almost all of them, if not all of them, named the movement after themselves. So that was a significant thing. I thought about it. Is there a difference between Prabhupada and all these other? Yeah, all the other gurus named the movement they're in after themselves. And Prabhupada, he said, the name of the movement is Krishna Consciousness, or International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So that's, you have to think about things. Is there a difference between Prabhupada and all these other gurus? Yes. He has come to make Krishna famous, not himself. The other gurus come to make themselves famous and not Krishna. And if you look at their movements, let's go through a couple names of movements. Ma Amritamayi and Osho, and it's a whole bunch of them. I forget all those names. It's all named after themselves. Whereas Prabhupada, he didn't put his name as the name of the movement. He put the name of Krishna, who's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All these things are important. Otherwise, you might not be able to differentiate all the other gurus from Prabhupada. One time, Prabhupada was invited to this program where there was going to be a whole bunch of these gurus. He refused to go. He didn't want to sit down with them, and everybody is, well, you say you're God, and I'll say I'm God, and we're okay, right? So will you say I'm God? Yes. Okay, then I'll say you're God. Okay, then we're all okay. So that's basically what was going to happen. If Prabhupada went to a meeting of all Mayavadis, uh, so-called gurus, then he'd be one of them, right? And he refused to go. He refused the invitation. Why should he sit down with a whole bunch of gurus and everybody's smiling and, well, you say you're God and I'll say I'm God and we'll be okay. Yeah. All right. Are there any questions about this verse? Text, Canto 3, Chapter 22, Text 36. Okay, so the main takeaway of the verse today, the verse itself says, he, meaning Manu, he passed his time, which lasted 71 cycles of 4 ages, or 71 times 4,320,000 years, always thinking of Vasudeva and always engaged in matters regarding Vasudeva. Thus, he transcended the three destinations. So, the three destinations are meant for persons who are under the control of the three modes of material nature. sattva, rajas, and tamas. These destinations are sometimes described as the awakened, dreaming, and unconscious stages. In Bhagavad Gita, the three destinations are described as the destinations of persons in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. It is stated in the Gita that those who are in the mode of goodness are promoted to better living conditions in higher planets, and those who are in the mode of passion remain within this material world, on the earth, or on heavenly planets. But those who are in the mode of ignorance are degraded to an animal life on planets where life is lower than human. But one who is Krishna conscious is above these three modes of material nature. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who engages in devotional service to the Lord automatically becomes transcendental to the three destinations of material nature, sattva, rajas, and tamas, and becomes transcendental to the three destinations of material nature and is situated in the Brahmabhuta or self-realized stage. Although Swayambhuva Manu, the ruler of this material world, appeared to be absorbed in material happiness, he was neither in the mode of goodness nor in the modes of passion of ignorance, but in the transcendental stage. Therefore, one who fully engages in devotional service is always liberated. Bilmalangal Thakur, a great devotee of the Lord, stated, "If I have unflinching devotion to the lotus feet of Krishna, then mother liberation is always engaged in my service. The complete perfection of material enjoyment, religion, and economic development is at my command. People are after dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Generally, they perform religious activities to achieve some material gain, and they engage in material activity for sense gratification. After being frustrated in material sense gratification, one wants to be liberated and become one with the absolute truth. So if they cannot enjoy sense gratification, then they want to become God. After being frustrated in material sense gratification, one wants to be liberated and become one with the absolute truth. These four principles form the transcendental path for the less intelligent, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Those who are actually intelligent engage in Krishna consciousness, not caring for these four principles of the transcendental method. They at once elevate themselves to the transcendental platform, which is above liberation. Liberation is not a very great achievement for a devotee, to say nothing of the results of ritualistic performances in religion, economic development, or the materialistic life of sense gratification. Devotees do not care for these. They are situated always on the transcendental platform of the Brahmabhuta stage of self-realization. Okay, so what does it mean by self-realization? One realizes that I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. That's who I actually am. And therefore, but that's not enough. But therefore, I should be engaged 24 hours a day in Krishna's service. That's real self-realization. Okay, well, we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? Are there any questions anyone would like to ask? Okay, no questions. So we will read one more verse. It's verse 37, because it's very, very nice verse. It says, "Therefore, O Vidura, how can persons completely under the shelter of Lord Krishna in devotional service be put into miseries pertaining to the body, the mind, nature, and other men and living creatures?" Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Every living entity within this material world is always afflicted by some kind of miseries, pertaining either to the body, the mind, or natural disturbances. Distresses due to cold in winter and severe heat in summer always inflict miseries on the living entities in this material world. But one who has completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in Krishna consciousness is in the transcendental stage. He is not disturbed by any miseries, either due to the body, the mind, or natural disturbances of summer and winter. He is transcendental to all these miseries. Well, I remember one time my house burned down. And normally a person would be really disturbed. I was not disturbed at all. Actually, it was a benediction that my house burned down. And my house burned down in a very special way. Nothing was really destroyed. Everything was, let's say, blackened and not used. It couldn't be used again. But everything was still there. It didn't all become dust or rust or whatever. So and I had insurance. So when the insurance guy came to evaluate, how much damage was done so that they could reimburse me, right? He was a really nice guy. So, and everything was there. I mean, everything was like blackened, but nothing was completely destroyed. You could still recognize something as, a towel, or something as, a shirt, or something as, a piano, whatever. So, and he was a really nice guy. So I said to him, "Oh, here's these are my shoes. I think I paid about $20." He said, "Okay, well, we'll say $50. Okay, let's go on to the next one." He was a really funny guy, and he was very kind. But see, the way my house burned, nothing was actually destroyed and made like, ashes. Everything was still there. You could tell, okay, these are shoes, this is a shirt, this is a watch, this is that. But you couldn't use them anymore because they were burned. So because of that, my house getting burned down, it was a blessing because all the money I got, I gave most of it to the temple because I had made a vow at that time, as you remember now. I made a vow of giving $100,000 to the temple. And this is before my house burned down. But I didn't know how I was going to do that. Right? The house burns down, and I end up, getting like $400,000 in cash. So right away, I gave the $100,000 to the temple. That was like Krishna's mercy. So I was happy that the house burned down. Right? Usually, people were devastated. This, that. No, I was very, very happy. Okay. So now I think we're at the end.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
In the same context, it says he is not disturbed by any misery. And you had given example of your home.
Yeah.
But for a neophyte devotee, even the small things, like as soon as they happen, get some level of disturbance, like not like fully, but some level of disturbance is just in mind. And sometimes it takes few hours that it will go away, or sometimes maybe few days. But like, what to do at that time when the disturbance is coming to the mind?
Yeah. I mean, I understand your question. You see, nothing can happen without the will of Krishna, right? Not a blade of grass moved without the will of Krishna. So there must be some reason why it happened, right? It's not. Everything is controlled by Krishna. So therefore, you shouldn't worry when things like that happen. There's some plan that Krishna has. You just have to be patient to see what it is. So when my house burned down, I wasn't devastated. I wasn't devastated at all because the way the house burned, everything was still there, but everything was like, uh, you know, uh, charred. Everything was, blackened, and you couldn't use it anymore, right? But because everything was still there, it wasn't dust, right, or ashes. You could identify it, and therefore, when the insurance agent came, he could identify everything, and that meant that I ended up with a big amount of money because I had insurance. If everything was burned into ashes, it's hard to decipher, what's there. But nothing was actually ashes. Everything was let's say blackened and partially, burned to ashes, but not completely. So the agent was able to verify all these different things that were in the house, and then I got a large amount of money at one time, and I was able to give that $100,000 I promised. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but now it happened. And I was able to do other good things in Krishna consciousness because of that money. So we have to, it's sometimes uh, a, a tragedy turns into a blessing. So this was a tragedy that turned into a blessing. And people were wondering, so how come you're not, you're not upset about this whole thing? I said, well, uh, that's because there's always a silver lining in every tragedy. So I could see the silver lining, almost not right away, but after a day or two, I saw, and now I can give the money that I promised the temple. And and I didn't really need that house anyway. I can live more of a simple life. And yeah, I did. I moved into the temple, you know. So that was good for me. Haribol.
It looks simpler when you look back.
Yeah.
But when you go through it, like the lack of faith, or um, at that time, we like, oh, something is.
Well, what happened was, like Omar set the house.
I'm like a neophyte, like anything happened in past, I can
Yeah,
get that out.
see, he set the house on fire, but he didn't die. He could have died. He didn't die. It's just the house got damaged and it was burned. But also next to the house was my garage, and in the garage was all my equipment for Uncle Harry's. Because at that time I was working out of my house, nothing got burned. So if that had gotten burned, and it would have been a much bigger fire, you could have set a whole neighborhood on fire. Okay. So that was a very good thing. So I could see how Krishna planned it in such a way that it was actually a blessing and not a tragedy. Nobody got hurt. Although Omar, he starts the fire in a closet on the second floor, Somehow he got out without getting hurt. And I was able to cash in uh, through the insurance company to all the things that I lost. So I didn't lose anything, I gained. So it was Krishna's mercy that the house burned down. Then they rebuilt the house because I had insurance. Then I sold the house. And I ended up with a big chunk of money. And then I was able to give the big donation to the temple. So the whole thing was not a disaster. It was actually a mercy. Yeah. Haribol. Yeah, people were asking me, "How come you're not crying or it doesn't look like you're lamenting?" I said, "Well, I'll tell you in 10 years from now." Haribol. Okay, well, I guess we will stop right there and continue chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.